Okay, welcome to FPL Wire. I'm Alon.
This is Zoph.
This is LR.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gameweek 32 free hit special episode. And I'm delighted to have one half of FML FPL, Alon here. And in case you guys don't already know, in my books, they are the OG FPL podcast. Probably my favorite podcast by a distance. What's up, man? I'm so glad to have you. How's everything going?
Everything's good. So happy to be here. Thanks for the high praise. That's got to be the earliest okay known to man. About 9:30 a.m. here. I hope I didn't wake up my entire apartment building, but we'll see.
Earliest okay? You're not a married man, are you?
How we doing?
Doing great. How's
Doing
your
good, doing
season
good.
going? How's your season going?
It's been a little bit of a roller coaster, but mostly good, I would say. I'm in an interesting spot, different from you guys. I don't have my free hit. I'm gonna have 11 next week. Well, assuming everyone starts and whatnot, but 11-ish next week with just free transfers, and then I still have my wild card and I still have my bench boost. So that's gonna decide, I think, a lot of where I end up is if I nail my wild card or not, and how I do on bench boost in 34. But I'm at 64K. I could finish really well, or I could finish with a little bit of a whimper, but we'll see.
Great platform to
No,
go on after this blank week to wildcard. Not many people will be using their wildcard now.
Yeah, exactly. I just need to nail it.
Yeah, I think you're gonna, and the bench boost is what you'd say fairly safely. That's 15 points on everybody else.
Yeah,
you'd
something
hope
like
to
that.
say, yeah, something like that at least. So yeah, I think you're in for a good finish, man. Don't worry about it. Just like Wash says on the board, like just make good picks. That's it. Don't overcomplicate the game.
So easy, right?
Yeah. But you, Zoff, how was your week?
Decent, 67 points. Somehow got away with selling Saka for Grealish. That was a bit of a roller coaster. Not a
Oh
very
my
Zoff
God.
move.
Yeah. Like that doesn't help you with your temperament if you want to take like a few risks in the future, does it? Like you're seeing a penalty again for Saka, and it's a very non-Zoff move to sell somebody like a Saka house, a sure thing for a Grealish, and then I'm so glad Saka missed the penalty, especially because I didn't have him as well. But for your temperament as well, because it's okay for Zoff to like take a little few more risks in life, etc. as well. So yeah.
What my thinking was that Grealish plays first. So if he gets a return, it obviously sort of massages whatever return Saka gets, right? That was sort of my thinking. And obviously it was more of a long-term move. I wanted to keep the option of selling Bruno in the later weeks. So that way you get the midfield. But now it looks like with Rashford fit and like, all the other players back, I have a benching dilemma now over the next week. So let's see how that goes. But the move has paid off already. What about you? Your -8 worked well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fairly frustrated with how FPL has been Gameweek 28 onwards. So the cuffs are off, and I was like, you know what? Let's just get some guys I liked, and it worked in my favor, especially with big points coming in the Liverpool Leeds game. So happy about that. And fair to say it was due, especially those Mo Salah points. So yeah, I think Liverpool is going to be a big point of conversation later in the pod, especially with Alon here, who's a Liverpool fan as well. So we'll get that perspective as well.
Should we get cracking?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All data you see on the FPL Wire is taken from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. The new improved members area is now up and running, and the new comparison tool lets you compare key stats for up to 3 players. Player projections are also live, and as always, you can access the custom stats table we create or make one for yourself. Sign up for membership today using our affiliate link in the description below.
Right, boys. We have the fixtures up now on screen. And just at the outset, let's have a quick discussion on overall strategy in terms of the free hit, right? A lot of different thoughts about it. A lot of people like to go different, like to pick players that were low owned in a free hit. But before we dive into that, I just want to mention that 45% of the game has already used their free hit, and 25% of the top 10K has already used their free hit. So that's something you do need to keep in mind while making your picks this week. When did you use your free hit, Alon?
Must have been 28, right? That was the big blank, right? Yeah, 28. Didn't really work, but I just kind of had a gray arrow and it was fine. And, I think that free hit is so tough, man, because it's just, I mean, we all FPL content creators know this, but it's just such a high variance game. Trying to pick one match, it's just so much luck and just so much randomness. Like, no matter how much of a sure thing it seems, right? I mean, just as a recent example, I think everyone in the world would have been like, Kane is going to haul home Bournemouth last week, right? Automatic. Like, just imagine that fixture was free hit. Everyone would captain Kane. Everyone would pile up on Spurs, and then, he blanks. It's just like, there's just so much randomness week to week, but, you gotta pick the guys.
But what's your general thinking about a free hit? How different should people go? Should you bet against somebody like a Trippier? Should you bet against the high ownership players, or just simple pick good players?
I think it's case by case. I mean, I think Trips is an interesting example, and Kane, actually. I think both, in the same match are kind of interesting examples of, kind of template-y, high-owned guys that I think this week have really low ceilings. Trips, I understand more because I think that as we'll get through it. I think there's really no defense that I trust this week because you want to spend your Arsenal and Liverpool picks mostly on attack. And then you're just put in a corner of like, am I trusting like Palace, Leicester, whatever, whoever it is, they're all bad. Kane is the prime example of someone I would 100% avoid, I think. I mean, Newcastle at home, top 2 or 3 defense in the league. They don't get battered. They don't concede a lot of chances. Spurs conservative side. I think the ceiling is really low for Kane, and it's a great opportunity to pick someone else with a high ceiling and just go for it. And I just don't think you'll lose that much, even if, the other forward you went for blanks.
Alar, what about you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think for everybody, free hit is going to be 6 from Arsenal and Liverpool plus 5. Actually, I think now Watkins is a part of that conversation too. I mean, after that performance, I don't know how anybody would not include him in the free hit, no matter what the fixture, because Villa just look like they're in a good place. And outside of that, just pick the picks you like. There are genuine cases and narratives for a lot of players. And like outside of those 7 players, there's it's tight. It's not like one team or one set of players sort of stands out over another set of players, in my opinion. So just go with the vibe, see what you're feeling in terms of matchup, and back yourself, especially because, like Alon said at the top of the pod, right? The randomness of FPL events sort of gets elevated when you're looking at just 1 week. So FPL is always, in my opinion, best played in the form of least regret. So yeah, back what you feel will happen.
And also, I go back to what you said earlier. You put yourself in a position to get lucky while also not getting fucked. So at the same time,
Yeah,
right? You got to don't pick
Right.
players, go against players just for the sake of being different, unless you're massively chasing. If it's different, I guess if you're outside like the top 300, 400K, then maybe you bet against a Watkins, I guess.
Yeah. And even if you're massively chasing, like, don't be stupid and not get more. Like, this is the highest ceiling fixture for probably the second best FPL player in the game over the course of the season. Like, there are places to be different. This isn't one of them. So even if you're chasing by 150 points, betting against more is not going to help.
Completely agree.
Yeah, and Mo is the example of not getting fucked, right? He's the not
Yeah,
getting fucked part of that statement. I mean, who are the other like must-have template guys, do you guys think? Or who's just going to be in, 100% of free hit teams outside of Mo and probably Trent?
Martinelli
Martinelli, yeah.
and,
Yeah,
and
I
I
think
guess
so.
Watkins, after primarily because of recency bias, right? What he's done
Right.
over the last week, I think Watkins will probably be there as well. Apart from that,
Right.
I think anybody who saw that game, and it's against Newcastle, right? You mentioned like top 2, top 3
Yeah.
defense in the league. To see what Villa did and to see what Watkins did, like, I thought he was unplayable. Like, and especially with like, let's get into it match by match so that like we can talk
yeah,
about
we're
it
overlapping
a
a
little
little
more.
bit.
But I
Right.
think we're all on the same page. Yeah.
Right.
Let's start with Arsenal.
Yeah.
First kickoff. What do we think about Arsenal now? And this is slightly deviating from the free hit. What do we expect? Some sort of reaction now after dropping points from being 2-0 up? I think so. They're back at home. I think they're going to put on a statement. What are your thoughts, guys? Alon?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the wounded tiger syndrome is definitely going to be on. Like, I back them to win by 3 goals in this game. Like, unless the thing is, I expect them to score a few, and especially because the last 2 games they've been up 2-0 up, and then they've taken their foot off the gas, which is why they've conceded goals, etc. I think every player in that team is going to be very wary of that and is going to be chasing that third goal if they're 2-0 up. And that's the thing. I back them. The only thing that might screw it up is if Southampton score first, and game state is always important. Then the nerves start coming in. Then you start questioning yourself. But I think the odds of that, especially how Arsenal have just started every game tremendously well all season, very, very low.
Yep.
So I back them.
At home, especially, right? Even if they go a goal down, the crowd's going to be up. They're going to be fired up, and that probably wakes them up even more, I guess. So I'm not really worried. But interesting that you mentioned about them conceding goals. The defensive numbers have dropped a little bit of late. Before we talk about that attack, let's talk a little bit about their defense, right? We mentioned right at the top of the pod, finding good defenders is a problem. And more or less a template, what we have seen on Twitter is going with 3 Arsenal attackers. Do you think we're necessarily overlooking their defenders? I've got the numbers up for the last 6 matches here. Ben White is prime icon now.
Yeah, he looks so good attacking, right? It's kind of crazy, but I don't know. I think the other side of it matters almost as much as the Arsenal side of it. Southampton are so bad. I mean, they have no plan. They concede possession. They have no attack. They have no goal scorers. They have no forwards. They're still relying on Walcott. I mean, I think this is just an easy win to nil. Like, I think this is, whether it's 1-0 or 3-0, I just think that Arsenal's going to be up for it. Their concentration level is going to be high. They're not going to concede a dumb chance. And, anything's possible. JWP could score one from 30, but I just don't see life in the Southampton side. Like, I think this is just an easy clean, and that balance of it's almost like, where do you want to take your punts, right? Because, as you guys have said, it's 3 Liverpool, 3 Arsenal, but do you want to take your punts in defense or do you want to take your punts in attack? Because I think you can make a case for like triple Arsenal defense or something crazy like that, and just being like, I want Eze and Bowen and all of these other guys, with maybe high ceilings, or alternatively triple Arsenal attack and go for, Johnstone and Castagna and whatever. That it's punts either way.
Yeah, I get it. That said, like, I do feel like Southampton have a couple of flary players in their ranks, and I don't feel. I mean, they're still the best shout probably on paper. Like, I trust their defense more than I trust Liverpool's for a clean sheet per se.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So they're the best shout, but like, I see a 4-1 maybe more likely than a 2-0. That's where I feel like, and I just trust their attack more, and I just trust Liverpool's attack more than the other teams, where you see a few goals and chance of catching a haul, which is why I'm leaning towards 3 attackers as well, especially because there are legit picks that you don't question in attack when you're looking at Arsenal.
Completely agree, because if Arsenal start attacking and start scoring, what do Southampton have to lose, right? You commit men forward and try to score. It's not like their position is going to get any worse. They're 20th.
Yeah, but I don't feel strongly about it. Like, if somebody wants to get White or Gabriel in, like, Gabriel also worth mentioning because he's one of those defenders. I mean, I think when we go game by game, I think we should talk about which CB is likely to get a header, and Gabriel's right up there in terms of just managing to fluke a goal. He's a great shot for something like that. So I don't mind it if somebody wants to get an Arsenal defender in, but I'd definitely throw in a couple of their attackers because I think they will want to score a few.
Completely agree. But I'd back Ben White over Gabriel personally.
How would you guys rank their attackers? I'm curious. I mean, I talked to Nate on our pod, and he's an Arsenal fan, and he kind of put Martinelli first, which just reinforced how I feel about it, which is Martinelli first for me as well.
I'd agree.
Yeah, I agree. He's outscored Odegaard and Saka by about 25 points each in the last 10 weeks. He every time Arsenal play without a striker not named Necktie, they do. Martinelli does really, really well, and it just suits him. So, I think my ranking would probably be Martinelli. Then I'm assuming Saka keeps penalties, and I expect him to maybe play 20 minutes more than I expect a Gabriel Jesus to. So he'd probably be second, and then it would be Jesus.
I'm slightly different. I'm putting Jesus slightly higher than Saka, and I don't know if it's a bit of recency bias, right? And as a Saka seller, I watched that game very closely. The only time I felt worried about not owning Saka was the penalty. I don't know, maybe he's going to bounce back, and I'm not going to say that because Saliba isn't playing, Saka is not getting the passes to. Just a little bit he's gone off the ball, but I back the quality of the player still. I'm not going without him. I think he will be fired up to show that he's making up for his mistakes. So I'd put Jesus slightly higher, but Saka would be my third over Odegaard. What about you, Alon?
Yeah, I think I'm the same there. I like Jesus. I mean, I'm a little worried about his minutes, though, I have to say. Just a little kernel of it is like, they still have Man City 3 days after this match. He's off a big, long injury. He's their super high press workhorse. I mean, if there's any game where you can throw Trossard in there, even if 45 minutes, 30 minutes, cheeky start there. I mean, they still will coast to a victory, right? I mean, it's Southampton at home. It's a joke.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of factors here. Like, Arteta, after a couple of results like this, is the kind of guy that seems to me like, you know what, I picked you guys over West Ham. That happened. Like, make sure that doesn't happen again. Picking the same team and doing the thing. He just seems like the guy. He doesn't easily fold on players he trusts. Not that Trossard is somebody he doesn't trust. Like, he could easily start for somebody. But that's my thinking in terms of how I perceive what I do. But I think like the honest truth of it is when we're going to talk about what FPL Twitter is, etc. these days and how exposed people are to ITKs. It's a Friday night game. It's the first game of the season. If there is news of Trossard starting, I think we hear about it before deadline, and I think people are going to amend and change their teams based on that. So it's good to have a backup plan in mind also, because I think there's news that's going to drop.
Ian Jesus, the thing
Trossard's a
is,
great pick.
he is
Yeah.
good. He does play. And the thing with Jesus, right? Just the numbers. I've got the as per the last 6 matches data, he's had as many big chances as Martinelli, Odegaard, and Saka combined.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Like what I like about having Jesus and Martinelli is you sort of got that Arsenal centre forward position covered for 90 minutes because these two guys are primarily playing central. And there's a lot of conversation about, playing against teams that sit, and Odegaard tends to do well in such games. But my perception of Southampton isn't that. I don't see them as a team that sits. I see them as a team that still takes a few risks, etc. as well. I still see a lot of space for Martinelli as well as Saka on both sides of the wings. And Jesus being Jesus, what he's been doing is he's dropping deep a lot. I see him getting the ball and then him and Odegaard playing Saka or Martinelli through and then having acres of space to run into. That's how I sort of beautified my the game, which is why I just want to go with the wingers.
That being said, 4 away games under Sellers. Guess how many goals they've conceded?
Oh my god. I'm gonna say 9.
2.
What?
Yep. Clean sheets away to
Oh, the
Chelsea,
City
away
game
to
was
Man
at home.
United. The clean sheets were away to Chelsea and Man United, and 1 each in the others. But I think with Man United again, they were down to 10. Chelsea couldn't hit a barn door. So
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
the
the
way
thing with
stats are.
Southampton, I'm glad you brought that up though, because the one thing with Southampton is, since Sellis has come in, I mean, their attack is genuinely worse in the league, but their defense hasn't been that bad. I mean, they've gotten shredded by City, but if you guys remember that match, the first half, City did nothing. They did not lay a single glove on them. They barely even got a shot. Then Holland scored like right before half, and then second half, City destroyed them. The Spurs game was a little bit of a weird one, the crazy 3-3, but otherwise it's been like kind of tight, low event games. And I don't know, I just have this thing in the back of my head where their press is kind of going to disrupt Arsenal. Maybe Arsenal come out a little nervy, a little slow or something like that. And that's why I keep going back to I feel like it's just a 2-0 or something, just like low scoring, coast to win, Southampton happy to lose, Arsenal happy to win, easy game. I just don't know if I see a 5 in there from Arsenal, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I have a feeling if you were free hitting, you'd probably throw a defender and 2 attackers in there.
I think I would. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see nothing wrong with it. Like they are the best clean sheet shout this week.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
In terms of weaknesses, Southampton, I think they're also much weaker down Martinelli's side, so that reinforces what we were talking about. But in general,
Yeah.
the defensive numbers, they're weak all over the shop. But these are more of a longer
Yeah.
sample size. These are also include numbers before Sellers.
Yeah. So yeah. Cool. I think we're on the same page. Let's move on to the next game.
You're telling me Walcott's not tracking back? Not covering for Maitland-Niles at right back? That's crazy.
Should we jump TV order and go straight to Liverpool before Brentford and Villa and stuff?
Yeah, let's talk about the second most important fixture. And I think everybody has Mo and Trent locked in their free hit drafts. And I mean, that's something that people are going to be doing if somebody is not on a free hit. I think this is the week to make sure you're sort of restructuring your team to get at least Mo in place, because he's going to be a great asset until the end of the season. I think you just do it. He looks good. Liverpool look like they're in a better place. But talk to us, Alon, about that third pick. And is that assumption correct of Mo and Trent are no-brainers?
Yeah, no brainers. I mean, free hit or not free hit. I mean, I think everyone should be getting him in, hold him for the rest of the season. Very safe, very good. I mean, when Trent looks like this, the assists are coming, the bones are coming, the hauls are coming. I mean, no one's going to be surprised if he just ends the season with 4 or 5 more assists, a couple double digits, and Mo too. I mean, 2 missed pens. Imagine if you hit those pens, you'd be he'd be right up there. He'd probably be second highest scorer in the game or something like that. But two great finishes against Leeds, so that was good to see. And I have full confidence in both of them. The third pick is such a crapshoot. I mean, I'm more curious, where are you guys at on your free hits? Like, who have you guys been leaning towards the most as your third pick?
Ella, why don't you go first?
So when I saw this game, and generally having watched Forest throughout the season, like the easy / in my head lazy thing to do is to go Robbo. But every time I watch Liverpool, they do give you two big chances a game. And
Oh, yeah.
our Forest have the kind of attackers that can take advantage or create a chance against this leaky defense, in my opinion. Yes, I think Gibbs White, I think Brennan Johnson, and I think Taiwo. I think he did well in the reverse fixture as well, if I'm not mistaken. Because
Yes.
if the law is there, and I think he's got that extra motivation, like nobody would be surprised if Forest sneak a goal and they have that then in them. And like, if you had to tell me point blank which is probably the largest drubbing this week, I'd put my money on Liverpool. Like, just because of how Forest are, how open they are. And that's why I just want to go with Trent and two attackers. Trent is pretty much knocked in because he's a midfielder and I expect Liverpool to have a lot of possession. But yeah, that's why I wanted to go for an attacker. And I was hoping that Darwin would show something on Monday. I even tweeted about it. And the more I think about it, because my thought has progressed, and I feel like Klopp has no reason to now drop Jota after persisting with him for 3 or 4 games and getting him back into form, so to say, letting him finish 2 goals. But he is still competing with Darwin for that position on that left wing. I think they're sharing minutes, and I think they're closer than the difference between a Gakpo and a Firmino, for example, which is why I feel like Gakpo's minutes appear most secure in that front three to me outside of Mo, which is why he seems like a safe pick. And in a crapshoot like this, you just want, more fish in the pond, trying to get lucky. And you want to go for Gapco, go for Gapco. You want to go for Jota, go for Jota. You want to shoot at the stars and go for Darwin. Just temper your expectations. That's about it. But that's where I am. I think I'm leaning more towards a Gakpo or Jota than I was Monday at the moment.
So I had Robbo in my draft all the way up till that Monday match. And obviously what we saw was Robbo was playing a little bit deeper. And that's what I'm worried about. I do think it'll be a bit different against Forest. I don't think they'll be having much of the counter attack. So Robbo, I think, will still get forward. He will take a few corners. But obviously the ceiling doesn't feel high because I don't see him making those underlapping runs anymore. Not once did I see him break into the box and attempt a shot against Leeds. His XGI was 0.03 or something like that. So slightly gone cold on the Robbo pick there. And now in terms of attack, if you're not on a free hit, I don't think I would be going anywhere near Darwin, Gakpo or Jota because they have a lot of games coming up, right? They play the midweek. 33 is a midweek. Then 34, they play 2 games, 35. So there is going to be some chopping and changing over there. And on a free hit,
and it's one of the tightest schedules in this congested period, isn't it, for Liverpool?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They play a Sunday, Saturday around, I think, that 34 game week. So, Klopp always rotates when that's the case.
Yeah.
So the thing is now, I think for the one game, Jota versus Gakpo is a coin toss, right? One game, the variance, anything can happen. And I think it really depends on the structure of your team. Like, I really want Dom Solanke. I really want Watkins and I want Jesus. So that doesn't really leave room for Jota. So Gakpo is a bit of a coverage pick, if I can say that. I do think on paper, if I had carte blanche, I'd probably go with Jota. Possibly a thing of familiarity that Jota has been good for us, right? So many times we've picked him and they've had injuries. I trust the player a lot more. I think he's a bit more selfish than Gakpo, which works well for FPL as well. So if you have room in your forward line, I think Jota is the third pick. If not, I think Gakpo could match him over one game.
What do you see there, Alon?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of what you guys are saying. I mean, in a weird way, I'm happy that I don't have free hit because I have Darwin already, and I get to just own him, and no one's gonna have him this week, and I get to just hope that he started. I think Darwin started pretty much every home game all season, except for Arsenal, Man City, Chelsea. Like, he just doesn't start in those big ones. He doesn't have the pressing. He doesn't have like the defensive structure. But in every other game, when Liverpool are expected to have the ball, expected to score the goals, expected to win the game, Darwin starts, and he has goals in those games too.
Talk to me, Alon.
Obviously the Man United game. Obviously, there was the Southampton game before the break. I think there were others too. I just don't remember off the top of my head. So I don't think anyone's safe for minutes. I think it's Mo is 100%, and then it's 3 or 4 players for 2 spots, and it's a toss up. I'm not Luke, FFS Luke, with like getting into Klopp's head of like, this is what he's thinking for this kind of match. But I don't know. It might be some weird sunk cost fallacy, but I feel like Darwin's going to get a start. I mean, I just don't think that he's going to. It doesn't make any sense, right? Because he hasn't been starting lately. But again, the matches lately are Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal, away game against Leeds. Like there wasn't really a home. There hasn't been a home game in a while where you're like, this is a great Darwin game. The last 2 home games were, aside from Arsenal, were the Man United game and the Wolves game, and he started both. I don't know. I just don't think he's gonna ride Jota this hard after the injury that he had. I don't think Diaz is ready for a start. Gakpo could go either way because he's really flexible, similar to Jota. Like either can play left wing, either can play 9. I don't know. I'm just feeling like Darwin might start.
I'm your perfect target market in terms of sell me your dreams of Darwin, cater to my hopes, and I'll buy into it because that's what I really want to do. So I wasn't expecting that, and I'm sort of made my mind up before the last 5 minutes. It's like, okay, I need to let that go and suck back in again. So I'm happy you said that because it just feels like something I really want to do, and I'm glad you're on that page. I'll obviously be in your DMs on Friday and ask you if you feel the same way at that same point. But you don't buy into the notion that Gakpo seems like the more nail pick for one reason. I feel like what does Klopp want to get out of the season now? Like we know for a fact that Firmino is leaving, and he's experimenting and thinking in terms of what to do, playing around with certain players, especially in the top 3 combination that he uses, and figure out a formation for next season. And what better way to plan than to actually do it in a competitive league structure? And that seems like a great opportunity to give somebody like a Gakpo more time in the league, get used to the players around him. Let's get other players used to him, etc. as well. It just feels like a good time to not to change that up, especially with him too much when it's what you're trying to do in terms of build chemistry for next season.
Right. No, I totally hear that argument, but the counter argument that I would say is that none of that matters, and all that matters to Klopp is just form. Like he just wants to end the season strong. But like the seasons where Liverpool won the league, the seasons where Liverpool won the Champions League, even last year where they almost quadrupled, all of those seasons before ended with like a 10-game stretch of win 8 and lose none or something like that. Like there was the 2020 season where they were a disaster and barely made top 4, right? But that season again, like they end so strong. They don't lose a game. They just batter everyone. Everyone's like, oh my God, Liverpool's back. And that leads into last season, right? And I think that is the most important thing to him is just end really strong, top 4 or no top 4, so we can have something to build on for next season. And I think that the form is more important to him than like the personnel, right? Because even though I agree Gakpo's, obviously a part of the future, just bought him, young. I mean, so is Jota, so is Darwin, so is Mo, so is Harvey Elliott. There's so many guys that sort of like fit that mold. And, there was the recent home game, again, home Wolves, where I see Darwin starting and Gakpo not. Right. And that's the type of game where you're like, all right, Liverpool, expected to win, expected to dominate the ball, all this stuff. Could have started Gakpo to try and get the sort of like Darwin, Gakpo, Mo front 3 going, but he didn't. He rested him in that game and just they coast to a win. Darwin starts. So I don't know. It's just I don't know if there's specific rhyme or reason. And like you guys said, he's big into sports science, and there's so much that we don't know behind the scenes, right? I mean, Darwin had this laceration over the international break, and who knows, that might be way worse than we think, and he's just not ready to start. That could also be the case. But yeah, it's just a gut feeling. I just think he's not gonna end the season with Darwin not starting like 9 out of 10 games or something like that. I just don't see that as part of the situation. I don't think Darwin deserves that, right? He comes on, presses in like the 91st minute. Klopp is like falling out of his chair saying, "Oh my God, he loves it." Scores a great goal. You know, he deserves minutes. It's such a toss up. I wish there was a leak. This is the one week where I wish there was a leak because then
Yeah,
it's just so easy.
when you say that, and I'm hearing people saying that Darwin isn't settled in the league, and that's why Klopp is not playing him out and he's resting him for next season. I don't buy that. I don't particularly remember a poor performance from Darwin when he's starting. He's done well every single time he's played for Liverpool, so I don't buy into that sort of narrative either.
That's debatable. He's wasted a lot of chances. He still played well, got into good position, but it's always been the finishing. So I guess what you define as playing well comes into that argument over there.
So Alon, then if you were on free hit, would you roll the dice on an attacker or go Robbo? Like, first question.
I don't think I'd go Robbo. I actually agree with everything you said, Zoff, about Robbo. I think that, Liverpool are going to have all of the ball against Forest. So how they're going to play and build up, I think, is a little less rigid than, the away performance against Leeds with like Trent in midfield. And it's sort of like a Man City style build up. And Robbo's like halfway between wing back and left center back in those. But there was the Arsenal game also where Robbo did get a big chance in the box. So there's that too. But I agree. I haven't seen him attacking as much. And I think that a big part of Liverpool ending the season well, which is, again, I think Klopp's main priority, is just it's all been the defensive structure that's gone to shit this year, right? It's all been just like conceding chances. Like as soon as the other team wins the ball, there's a break and it's 4-on-2 out of nowhere and they get a massive chance. So I think Robbo's still gonna run, right? He's like a bull, right? He sees open space, he can't not sprint into it. Like he's just the easiest target. But I think he's a little bit more reserved lately, and I don't love our defense still for a clean sheet, not as much as Arsenal. So I think I would go for an attacker. Jota might be my number one outside of Mo. I just feel like, again, the form seems undroppable. Can play left, can play center. Klopp loves him. Our best presser, best defender from the front, right? That's important to him too. Like Gakpo doesn't have that yet. But after Jota, I mean, it's really tempting to take the swing for Darwin. I think it's really tempting because even if he gets 30 minutes, he could brace, and I don't think you could say the same about Gakpo or Jota. I don't know. LR's wincing in pain right now. Am I really gonna go there?
LR spider sense is tingling. LR has a massive Darwin boner now. It's visible from like few cities away.
It's frustrating because I talk myself out of it, and then Alon comes on and does this.
They pulled me back in. It's like I can see that Godfather 3 meme. They pulled me back in.
Yeah, exactly. Zoff actually paid me on the side to say all of this just so we could see your reaction.
Yeah. When I win, Zoff smirked that second. I saw it. I was like, oh my God, he's going to go there. Yeah. I don't know.
Something to that.
Yeah. Where are you with your third pool player?
I'm going for Akpo, as we call him on the pod, thanks to Mr. Bakar. And I just want to highlight quickly the numbers we have. This is from the last 4 matches. And just to highlight how far in the league Salah is. Shots in the box, Salah 15, Jota 4, Gakpo 4. So that just highlights that where Salah is compared to the other guys, right? I think it's pretty much a coin toss. You go with who fits your structure in your team, depending on all the other players you have.
But would you talk people off for Robbo, Zoff?
No, I wouldn't talk anyone off for Robbo because the other picks you can go for in midfield. And in defense, it's very hard to identify who I like, especially as the third defender. I'm quite set on Trent and Trippier, but the third defender, I'm very iffy. But I like a lot of attackers.
Personally, I would rather go Ben White or Gabriel than Robbo. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, it makes sense because it's a on paper safer clean. I agree with that notion. So That's the whole thing. And White
Safer,
is
clean, and I think Liverpool have a higher chance of,
Blowing.
4+.
Yeah.
They've had such a crazy season. Like they have a 7, they have a 9, they have a 6. They just have these like explosions sometimes.
Yeah.
It could be this weekend.
And Forest looked terrible.
Yeah.
Let's just mention that against Man United, they could have easily conceded 7 or 8. Man United
Oh my
recorded 3
God.
plus XG, and they're supposed to be much stronger at home. Forest, you
Yep.
couple that with the Anfield factor, the ceiling is unlimited over here.
Exactly. And if you're like comparing apples to apples, like if you're comparing Robbo versus White as a wingback, I'd say today, in the last 4 or 5 games, in terms of what we've seen, White's more attacking.
Agree.
Like if
Right,
you're
exactly.
trying to
That's-
chance an attacking return,
part
I
of
think
it.
White, yeah. Cool. That's the 2 main fixtures. Then where are we going next off?
Let's go to Brentford Villa, the battle of teams that have better managers than Frank Lampard.
Alon, if you don't know, Zoff is an absolute lover of Frankie Lampard, and most
Super
of us
Frank.
here on FPL Wire are Chelsea fans.
Gotcha.
I think we've
That's
spoken about
brutal.
Watkins a lot right at the top, right? Let's not spend time on him, but let's talk about Brentford. I have a hard time analyzing Brentford because they're a very Jekyll and Hyde team, right? I always think about, Brentford, good defense, but then you see Raya racking up 20 save points every game. They're not really a good defense, are they? But at home,
No,
again,
that's
they're a different beast. Where are we on Brentford?
that's the thing. Like Raya's been racking up many saves every game. I think that tells you more than it doesn't in terms of they're conceding a shit ton of chances to anybody and everybody play. Like Wolves are like not known for how well they attack, and they created outside of the 2 goals, it created a fair amount against this Brentford team. And I was like, this team is there to attack, which is why like Watkins is nailed in my team. But outside of that, like if I was to punt in midfield and if I was to take a gamble against an Eze, for example, which is that 4th/5th midfielder slot that everybody's talking about, I think Jacob Ramsey is a genuine shout. Like I think he's a player. I think outside of Watkins, he's in and around the box pretty much all the time. I think Villa probably one of the most motivated teams in the league at the moment, because I think they're not thinking just about Europa. I think 4th spot is there for the taking. And I think Emery kind of knows that because nobody's really putting their hand up outside of the top 3. Like, Brighton, Spurs are playing each other soon enough. Spurs and Newcastle are playing each other this week. So, like, I think he kind of fancies that, and I think they'll be up for it. I see, despite Brentford being a Jekyll and Hyde team, if I was to call it, I'd say it'd be a comfortable win for Villa. I just think that's how momentum is for this game. Like even Brentford, I mean, out of the blue, they're playing a different team, and then they get this new striker who they're sort of trying to set up in their team in the last 2 games, and I've never seen his face all season. Like I don't know what's up with that. I mean, Brentford do get their chances, but I'm sort of tempted to go triple Villa in this game just because of how good Villa are.
Wow.
Like just because of how good Villa are. Like, and there are 4th picks, and Watkins is nailed. I think there's a case for Ramsey in midfield. The thing I like about Moreno a lot is, again, he's one of the most attacking wingbacks in the league at the moment. If I was looking at the stats for the last 6, he's 3rd for chances created and top for penalty box touches. So the chances of spiking a haul on either side of the pitch are quite high. And then I've sort of been visualizing, and I hope it really happens. But like expensive, like is there a better penalty saver in the league than Martinez at the moment? And you want to sort of see Tony versus Martinez, the best penalty taker versus the best penalty saver. I just want to see that. Whether I go for Tony or Martinez, I don't care, but I want to see that. And there's a chance to catch a haul there. So I'm thinking go 2 or 3 Villa. That's where I am at the moment.
Yeah, the defense is a big talking point. I think that's where I'm really debating another spot, Martinez versus Moreno versus double up on Palace. Where are you on that, Alon? Because Brentford usually score at home. They've blanked at home only twice this season. Even against Newcastle, who we consider a very elite defense, they created plenty of chances.
Yeah, I mean, listening to you guys talk, I think this is a spot where I'm way different than you guys are. I mean, Villa have been playing really well. Ollie looks in the best form of his life, so I understand that pick. But Brentford are good at home, man. I mean, let me asterisk all of this because they could be on the beach, and it's hard to it's hard to tell, you know, before it happens. They've lost 3 in a row. They could be on the beach. Haven't been playing that well, but I've always considered them the best underdogs in the league, and they're an underdog at home this week. They're tough. Their home defensive numbers are good. I mean, they keep except for the Brighton game, they keep actually low. I mean, it's like 1.3 or lower in every other game, pretty much at home. I think they'll score. I don't see a Villa clean, and I don't think Villa are gonna like blow them away either. I mean, no one's blown them away at home. The most goals they've conceded were 3 at home, and that was against Arsenal, and that happened one time. At home they're just tight. I mean, they keep games 2 or 1 and low XG, not a lot of chances. They're happy to concede possession to Villa. It's not like, I mean, I don't know what Newcastle were doing, but Ollie just had so much space, right? He was just blowing by the center backs all day on the break, over the top, long balls, all that stuff. That is not going to happen against Brentford. They just don't let long balls happen. They're just going to sit back, play on the counter.
I'm just seeing the stats here, Alon. Like they've conceded at home, 1.2 XG to Palace, 1.5 XG to Fulham. They've conceded 1.4 XG to Leicester. And you'd say that like Villa are a better team than the names that I mentioned here. So, and then there is the little bit of a beach sort of vibe happening there. That's the thought. That's all.
They've lost 2-0 their last game. I think at home they will show a reaction, and I do think they'll concede. It's about whether they'll score or not. I think that's really most where the debate is, and I think they will score. And as it is, I don't think any of us are picking Tony. So to go against, it's sort of doubling down, right? Getting a Villa defender is sort of like, not picking Tony and it's not using his score. It feels a little bit risky to me.
Yeah, I feel like the case for Moreno isn't really that I think they're going to clean. It's that all the other defenders are punts, so you might as well go for the most attacking guy and hope you get an assist, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like you can make the same case for like a lot of the center backs this week. I mean, you guys mentioned Gabriel, but I think, Shar, Zuma, even like Tarko, like just try and roll the dice and hit a goal or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I think this is more of a 1-1 or a 2-1 either way. I don't really see hauls in this game, and I think if I was on free hit, I wouldn't invest that much into this game.
Would you get Watkins if you were on free hit?
I think probably after a week of not wanting him, I would talk myself into, again, he's the part of the not get fucked part, right? It's just don't be stupid. Get the guy who's in the best form, whatever. If he blanks, fine. If he scores points, fine. It doesn't really affect you that much either way. But I don't know. I haven't made a draft because I'm not free hitting, but I don't think I'd be on a Villa defender. I don't think I'd be on a Brentford defender. I just don't see that many other picks I want here.
You'd probably keep a safe distance from this game.
Yeah, I think so. And honestly, like I'm happy I have Raya. I mean, like I expect Villa to score, but he's got 7 saves in him again. He's got bonus points in him again. Like even when they concede, he seems to just get 5 pointers. So, good pick.
Agree with that.
Cool. I think that's all there is to talk about when it comes to this.
Let's talk about Fulham Leeds. And I'm so disappointed that Dan James, I only realized that he's on loan when we were on this game. So you were saying something?
We should say a big hello to friend of the pod, Marco Silva, before we start talking about this game, because he clearly watches us. He clearly takes advice from what we're saying on here. So yeah, hello, Marco, and a good job last week. Thanks for listening to us. Just for context, we just very loosely mentioned about how the downgrade from Mitrovic to Vinicius is probably the greatest downgrade, like quality-wise, in any position in the league. And I was going on a little rant about how they should probably throw Dan James in and they'll have a better chance of doing well rather than throwing. We were fully shitting on Vinicius. That's what was happening.
Yeah.
And it just happened to happen in the week we were shitting on Vinicius. So yeah.
what do we expect from this game? Leeds have been awful. Will they show a reaction? Fulham, we mentioned we spoke about them being on the beach and they won 3-1 against Everton, was supposedly very good at home. How do we? I just look at this game and I feel feels like a 2-2, 3-2 in terms of no defenses. Yeah, a lot of goals in this game.
Goals. Yeah.
And
That's the end all be all of what I expect is just a lot of goals, bad defending.
who do
You
like from
fancy
this
the
game?
Rodrigo punt, so
Yeah, that's the one I would
I like
recommend
it.
because in terms of you look for talismans, right, from both of these two teams. I'm trying to find someone now. If that guy Solomon started for Fulham, maybe there's somebody you can consider as a punt. But Andreas is somebody I don't think I can put into my starting 11. It just doesn't feel right. Maybe if he was 8 million, 7 million mentally, I would feel more secure doing that.
Yeah.
But putting a 4.3 mid there on a free hit, I just don't feel comfortable doing that. It's purely mental, purely biased, whatever you call it. But in terms of Fulham, maybe Harry Wilson is somebody to look at. But again, he's going to be playing with Vinicius. And Marco Silva mentioned why he played James. He says he wanted someone to make runs in behind, so he would bring the wingers into play. The dynamic again changes with Vinicius. So again, his stock goes down over
what
there.
has he said he's going to play Vinicius in this game or something like that has happened?
He hasn't, but who else would they play?
James. Oh, they can't play James. Oh,
That's
the
what I said.
thing.
He's on loan
get it.
from
Yeah.
Leeds.
But they could
Yeah.
play, some weird William Solomon Pereira, like something
Deco
crazy.
Reed, exactly. Yeah, they got
Yeah,
players.
they have a lot of random guys that they could just throw in there. Harry Wilson, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's fully like price bias off. I mean, Fulham are really bad at attacking when Mitro's not playing, right? I think that is also the factor. Is like, yes, we're sitting here saying we expect goals, but that's mostly just because Leeds are so shit. Not really because Fulham are like putting up numbers and look good in attack at all. So I agree with you there. But yeah, Rodrigo, if he starts, I mean, he's been so good all year. Really has.
Yeah, it's a punt. And while we're punting, there's nothing I would say to talk you off a punt like Rodrigo. Off.
Yeah.
Anybody
Like that
else?
talisman.
Any other investable FPL assets in this game?
So I was looking at Wilson because,
Okay.
but I think like James not playing is a factor in terms of just going through and because you're shooting darts out here and trying to find picks that aren't picks you're probably looking at. It's just primarily because of how Leeds have been, and they've had a good 30 minutes in most games, and they've just capitulated after, like, whether it was Palace, whether it was even against Liverpool. I thought they had a solid first 25-30, and
Yeah.
then once that chance came, they fell like a stack of cards. So crumble, we talk about that on the pod. Like Leeds have that factor, and like the only thing coming to my mind is we had a friend FPL Lions come early season, preseason, and talk to us about Fulham, and he mentioned how Harry Wilson was sort of like the Mo Salah of the championship when it came to FPL. Like, he was the real deal. He was the guy who got like the points for this Fulham team when they were in the championship last season. So we're throwing the dart, like, because of Leeds, Wilson's a pick, and he did get a few chances in the last game. I thought like he positions himself in the center of the box. I like that a lot. He's on some set pieces. So yeah, maybe.
I was going to mention the set pieces. I mean, he was a former Liverpool player. I remember him. I remember watching him a lot, and he is really good at set pieces. I mean, for that Bournemouth team too. I mean, he scored 7 goals in the 1920 season and 20 starts for Bournemouth, right? I mean, he has goals in him. He has free kicks. He has, direct frees. He's a shooter. I mean, he might start at striker. I mean, that might be.
Yeah.
Of all of the guys we mentioned, I think he's the least wingery and the most strikery. But it's definitely a punt. But that's what's fun about free hit, right? Is like choose your Liverpool Arsenal and then pick an Ollie and choose 4 other punts.
Amongst other things, he also has Junior Firpo. Like, I love that matchup.
I
Like,
love that.
yeah. So yeah, that's a shot.
Leeds are such a mess.
Such
They
a
might go
mess.
down.
Like, I was worried for them the day they sacked Marsh. I thought that was so unnecessary. Like, everybody could see the trajectory of the club, and they were just terribly unlucky to like lose a couple of games just because of sheer luck. And yeah, not a good decision.
Let's move on to Roy Hodgson's Barcelona.
Yeah, what the hell is going on with Woy? Do you guys believe in Woy? Is this new? Is he a changed man?
I mean, it reminds me of something, you know what? It reminds me a little bit, especially with Eze, is the Pogba factor. Like what happened with Pogba when Mourinho left, right? Now, Eze had been left out of the team under Vieira, and now he's come back and said in his recent interview that he's just given us more freedom, given us more confidence. And it reminds me so much, right, of exactly what happened with Mourinho and Pogba. Just that one guy is completely unleashed, and you see that immediate new manager bounce. There's nothing that exemplifies it better. So, and it's a good squad. They have the squad. They have the
Yeah,
attacking
they
players.
have
Vieira was
talent.
just playing in such a negative way. So I do
Yeah.
think I think Hodgson mentioned their target is 40 points, and they're I think on 37 now. They need one more win, and after that, he's pretty much admitting that I'm pretty much bringing my flip flops. We're all heading to the beach right after.
Yeah.
So we have to capitalize on them this week, I think, while we can.
And Alon, when you talk about whether we believe in what's happening with Voy, like I feel like whenever we thought about Crystal Palace back in the day, like probably Patrick Van Aanholt was the player we got most excited about. Like I don't think
Yeah.
he's had outside of Zaha talent like Eze
Zaha,
and
yeah.
Olise at his disposal, and he's just said, "Guys, do your thing, play." Like I think Vieira did the thing for him in terms of it wasn't a very difficult job for him having such highly talented people at his disposal to say, guys, just play. And a little bit of structure, boys been there for dog years, work because players are good. The players are just really good.
Yeah, I do think that that's like the genesis of what a new manager bounce is often is
Yeah.
like the vibes change, and also
Yeah.
you just play your best players in the best position, right? Like I think as fans, we're always sitting at home being like, oh, they should play this guy instead of this guy. And often that's the one change the manager comes in and does. And it's like, oh, thank God, our best player, Eze, clearly like our second best attacker to Zaha, should be playing. I mean, the one thing I'll say about this game is that I think that we have like historical bias of like Boy versus Dyche and Palace versus Everton. And people are like, oh, there's cleans here. Like,
No.
there's no clean here. Like, this is going to be a wide open game. Since Dyche has come in, they're a top 10 non-penalty XG per 90 team, and they're fourth worst in the entire league non-penalty conceded per 90. And they're a wide open attacking team. I don't know why, and I don't know, what Dyche is trying to do or show, but that's who they are. And I think Palace can just like exploit that for fun on the break. I mean, they have the pace, they have the talent to just beat them. So I think this is another high scoring game. Lots of chances both ways.
Would you go Eze or Olise if picking just one?
Eze for me, for sure. I mean, I like the goal scorer. I like the form. I mean, Olise is great. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, Eze just has brace potential.
You think Edwards a fun outside shout there?
I mean, you guys have tinkered more than me on free hit, but I feel like the forward real estate is just too valuable. Like, I feel like there's more opportunity for like a fourth or fifth mid punt than there is for a forward punt. But I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it's because of your choice is going to be between the fifth midfielder or the third forward if you're thinking
see.
about. Yeah, so it's fine. Outside of 5 potentially from Liverpool and Arsenal, you've got 2 spots open. Where you're going there with your 2 spots is what the thinking is.
And this all goes back to where I started, sort of, which is just such a hard balance issue, which is where do you want to take your punts, right? It's like I feel really good with an Arsenal defender in my team and like punting on someone like Eze, who I love, versus, going plotting like Odegaard or Trossard in that slot or Jesus in that slot and going with like some terrible defender on a bad team.
Yeah, I see. There are no clear cleans to chase outside of the top 2
Yeah.
fixtures. Yeah, I mean that's why I was building up Aston Villa in my head against a Brentford team that, like you mentioned, score at home all the time. So yeah. So where are you at with clean sheet potential as well as attacking potential? Are you on Eze?
No, I'm actually thinking about Jordan Ayew, possibly the most unfashionable
wow.
pick of the lot. I've got
Get
some.
out of here.
Yep.
Get out of here.
Smashing
End the
it so far.
pod.
It is the ball connection 100%. I don't see another reason for you to go there. So there is no legit other
No,
reason
he's
for you
actually
to go
playing the most forward now since Zaha has been missing, and I've got the data up here also for the last 3 matches. Under voice shots in the box is 6. That's double, like that's all you say. I'd say combined XG non-penalties as high as I'd say. So the numbers are there, the vibes are there. And something I want to mention on Everton, Doucouré suspended for this one as well. And last game they were missing Onana due to injury. If he's missing this game
wow.
as well, that's Everton's midfield being non-existent. That makes a
Yeah, and they
matchup a
don't have
lot
a
more
defense.
favorable. They don't have a defense. So that makes a matchup a lot more favorable. That's team news we should potentially watch out for. And Everton are a poor defense now. I think we need to get that whole thing of Dyche
So
keeping
bad.
them tight, because we saw what happened at Man United. I just could not believe how high their line was.
Oh my
It was like Tony
What
Montana.
was
It was higher than Tony Montana at the end of the Scarface thing, like it was completely off the rock. Like, yeah,
I think that was one of the worst performances I've seen from any team ever. Like in that first half, I could not believe what I was watching.
Zoff, I'm so impressed right now. Like I genuinely am so impressed that you might do something like this. I just want you to do it, and I'll be cheering for him if you get IU. Like I want you to do it. Like it's so non-Zoff to just back a feeling that you have. Like Friday, I'll be in your DMs like asking you to do this because you felt it. Like to do it.
It all depends on the news. Like you said, that Onana news comes in, I'm very tempted to punt on an attacker because the numbers are good. And I always feel at home, Palace will always attack a little bit more. They're one of the strongest home support. So I like one of their attackers, and my picks would probably be IU. And IU is a midfielder, by the way, for some reason.
Oh,
I thought he was a forward. See, you thought so too, right? I think that's from last
Yeah.
year. He's a midfielder, so it's
Yeah.
It's
easier to
because no
accommodate.
one's considered him in fantasy for 15
Ever.
years straight. That's why we
Exactly.
didn't know what position he played. But yeah, I mean, we'll get to some of the other games for sure. But when I look at this, I'm like Palace. I feel best about Palace in terms of the other punts. Just matchup wise, right? I mean, you're talking about no Doucouré, no Onana potentially, but even with those guys, we're talking about a bottom 4 defense.
Yeah.
Who just play completely wide open. And what's better than wide open than just, the young, fun, cool picks on Palace just having so much space and so much freedom. Palace could legitimately score like 4 in this game again and then
Yeah.
go on the beach. And I don't think anyone would be surprised.
You guys are talking me out of Villa and into Palace in terms of attack as well. But like, what I want to is ask you is, do you feel the same way about Palace defenders? Because people who are going 5 from Arsenal and Liverpool don't know where to go for defense. Of you were saying,
Yeah, I've got double Palace defense right now, and I don't think I would go for one of the. I think Johnston is a good pick in terms of the save potential and bonus. They concede a lot of these low XG shots, which we like for goalkeepers. And I like Johnson as a keeper in general. I remember when he was at West Brom, I think a year or so earlier. He's a good keeper, a good shot stopper. I watched a bit of the highlights from the first game against Leicester, and he allowed Mitchell quite a bit of license to attack. Mitchell had a shot from open play, created a couple of chances. So I don't think I'd be going for either of the centre backs because Everton have those big guys, right? They're going to stick Cody Tarkowski on Guehi Anderson. So I think there's potential from open play over there, especially because I think Coleman is still out. I think there's some issue going on with the right back position. Patterson is not fully fit. Coleman is not fit. So Mitchell could get some joy down that left side.
that's fine. But like, are you confident of a clean? Like I'm not confident, especially because new sexy Daesh is attacking Daesh, and it's not like Palace. They don't strike me like the tightest team defensively. Like I thought they conceded a fair amount of chances to Southampton also. Like I thought they were quite open. I don't feel confident.
They were
about
under
the
1
Palace.
XG against Southampton, but against Leicester, I think they restricted Leicester to like 1 shot or 2 shots. So I do think they're a good defense. I'll show you the guys, their team stats. In fact, I'll just pull them out right now since we're in the discussion. Why not? So over the last 6 matches, and this is obviously includes some sample size under Vieira, they've conceded only 3.4 XG not penalty. This might be the last 4 matches in the last 6 matches. I have to check I'll double check the data there. But the defensive numbers are strong in general.
How do you feel about the defense, Alon?
I mean, I think I just sort of like painted the picture of Everton are going to get chances, and I do think
Yeah.
they're going to get chances. I mean, their attack is legit. It's weird to say, but it is legit. But on the counterpoint, I agree that Johnston's a good pick, and part of that has to do with Everton's players are so goddamn bad.
Calvert
mean-
Lewin might be back. Just something I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
They meant that
That's a
something in
little
training.
scary. That's a
Yeah.
little scary for a clean shot. But you look at the other guys. I mean, there's not a single finisher in that team. I mean, we're talking Maupay, Gray, Iwobi, McNeil. I mean, those are great candidates to give Johnston a lot of save points, right? So I could see the logic there. I mean, I could see a 8 save game or something crazy like that from Johnston, even if they don't clean getting good points this week.
I think it's written. Like everybody's going to double up on the Palace defense, and it's going to be Maupay's week. It's legit going to be his week because these things happen in these weeks.
Oh, I remember
It
the
just
goal he
happened.
scored for Brighton in the same fixture. He should have been sent off early in the game, and then he scored the winner.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's a Maupay hat trick. It's
Yeah.
like should have been sent off and score. I mean, I would be nowhere near doubling their defense. I think
Yeah.
Johnstone's fine, but I mean, Anderson, I guess, has the best case because we were talking earlier, right? If you want to just throw a dart and try and get a goal, I mean, Anderson gets shot and he gets chances, and Everton, I think, are the worst or second worst set piece defense in the league to Bournemouth. So
And-
there's that.
Olise is on set pieces, right? He's a pretty good deliverer.
Yeah, he's good. Good
I'm
corner.
surprised to
Yeah.
hear that
Yeah.
Everton concede a lot from set pieces. You wouldn't expect with the big guys they have.
Well, they also have a keeper with very short arms.
Yeah,
So that's a factor.
That's a good point.
But yeah, I don't know. I think Everton are going to get chances. I just don't know if I'd double on Palace defense. I don't like it. I like the attack a lot more. Weird
Alright.
to say.
It's just a lack
Yeah,
of
same here.
options, really. More because lack of options, and Everton do have some weaknesses down their flanks, which is why I like the whole Mitchell pick.
Yeah.
In my head, it comes down to we know that Villa are a better team when you're sort of, let's say, pitching a Villa defender against a Palace one. Is that we know that Villa are a better team, are in a better place, have more place, better, but their opposition is tougher. And in such a dilemma, do you back the stronger team or the weaker opposition? And that's a question we always ask ourselves as FPL.
I
managers
think
all the
you
time.
back the by a very large margin best attacker, which is Moreno.
Yeah.
But there's no one on Palace that's going to put
Yeah.
up like half an XA or something like that. There's no one.
No.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. Moreno's locked in.
Let's talk Leicester Wolves. I think this is a difficult game to predict, and I think based on recent numbers, we should probably be getting Wolves defenders. But I see again
Yeah.
Maddison popping up in a few teams. It's a difficult one to call because we know Leicester have the worst XG numbers at home over the season. But does that go out the window a little bit with Mr. Dean Smith in charge?
So I think there's a couple of factors that have happened. Like, I would be interested in what Smith says about Nacho in his press conference.
Right.
Like, if he says that he's my guy, I'm a lot more interested in Leicester than I've been all week. Because I truly believe that if he's playing Vardy again, they're a no-go. But if he's playing Nacho, like, there's a wide difference in terms of what I'd expect out of Leicester based on that selection alone. That's another factor. And I feel like Tielemans is back from injury. I think that adds a little bit to their midfield. So it depends on these two, three things falling in place for me to be interested in Leicester. But even outside of that, would I, however rubbish Leicester have been, I wouldn't talk anybody out of matter because it's just the player. It's just the caliber of the player that you're backing in a home game against Wolves where they've got everything to play for.
So good versus
There's no
City.
form in the last 20 minutes when Nacho
Last
came on.
20. Yep.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
rare that
that's-
you see such a difference between the starter and the backup. I mean, I'm talking not starter backup, the best player and the worst player in Nacho and Vardy, right? It's not that dissimilar to Mitro and Vinicius at this point. I think Vardy is that washed. I mean, even
Yeah.
if you just look at the XG, I mean, there's half a goal difference between them. I mean, that's ridiculously massive. Like, it doesn't really get that much bigger. I agree with you. I think that if we get some Nacho news from Dino, whether he's to be trusted or not, I mean, that turns Nacho into a decent punt, I think. Someone that I would definitely consider if I was on free hit. maybe consider for my one free transfer this week even. I think he is that good, but I have a very rogue feeling that Leicester are the weird clean sheet this week. I am just so down on Wolves' attack. I mean, they have the most touches in their own defensive third, the most touches in their own box of any team in the league. They are just defensive possession, do nothing. Nothing happens in their games. You know, that on Double Pivot, one of the guys was saying like the rule has always been avoid Wolves matches to watch, and that rule is still the case. I mean, Lopetegui has just come in and been like, let's just keep doing nothing, offering nothing, not attacking. Their attacking numbers are so bad, and it's not like Leicester are a good defense. I mean, I'm not going to go out and say that, but I just feel like of all of these teams and all of these games, like we've been going through game by game, being like, I see goals, like kind of wide open attacking. Like this is the one other game than Liverpool Arsenal where I'm like, no, Wolves are just not going to attack. They just don't ever attack. They don't do anything. So I'm like, there's a better chance, I feel like, of a clean in this one than the others, just because of Wolves.
That'll be music to Baker's ears, and how you were waiting to hear on Darwin. He's been trying to talk us into Castagna for the last couple of days.
Dude.
Again, pedigree, right? Like he's got attacking pedigree. We don't know what Dean Smith is going to do. What if he persists with 3 at the back? Then you've got a wing back playing for Leicester, so even more attacking potential. It's a good roll of the dice. We're like picking players from bad picks here, so it's all right to just. We're all building our narratives to suit our preferences here. Like I said, outside of the 6 Liverpool and Arsenal, it's all a crapshoot at the moment. So just go with the pipes. I'm not against it. Like I was listening to FML FPL before you came on, chatting to us, and I really like the Harry Suter shout. Like
Suter, man.
He's one of the biggest guys ever. And like he's due. And I remember watching Leicester highlights every game, and he's got the Harry Maguire syndrome where the ball falls on his head at every corner. He doesn't put it at the back of the net, but that does happen. So if you're chancing like a goal from a centre back and a decent chance of a clean sheet, yeah.
I think Ricky.
Not against.
Yeah, I mean Suter,
you guys like
his
Suter?
numbers are insane.
I haven't really noticed that. I'm surprised to hear you guys say that. I'll have to look it up. Because I was looking more at the fullbacks. I'm hoping that Ricky P possibly plays out of position, 6 on the right wing, maybe because we have to monitor Barnes' fitness for that. But I would really be looking more at the fullbacks, Castagna or Pereira or Ricky P.
Yeah, it's an interesting shot. I wasn't paying close enough attention or thinking about this game. Like I think the chat with you guys has me thinking about it a little more. Yeah, could be an outside shout for a clean or just a pick in defense or attack.
Yeah, I just think it's the Wolves factor, versus the other games we were talking about, right? Like Brentford, Villa, Palace, Everton, Fulham, Leeds, like all of these games. I'm like, I could see a 2-2 in there. Like I definitely think both teams scoring is likely in those games where, this is the one. And Sooners 0.8 shots per 90. Like that's ridiculously high for a center back, and 0.14 XG per 90. In his 10 games. I mean, he's just getting his head on everything. And he's a bit of like a doofus, but could be a good week to rely on that.
Just to balance this out, I watched the Brentford Wolves game last week. I had double Brentford defense, and it wasn't a
Wolves had chances.
Wolves had a lot of chances.
Wolves had chances. Yeah. Like maybe we're not being fair to Wolves. Maybe. I don't know.
How bad Leicester are.
Yeah. I mean, I could totally be off the mark here, but I do think there's a little bounce probably at home, right? I mean, Dean Smith's first game in charge is away Man City. I mean, that game was over in 10 minutes, so that doesn't really count. But they're genuinely in a relegation battle. They need points in this game. They're home. I mean, they're going to be up for this game, and this is a humongous game for them. This is a cup final. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in this game from a free hit perspective.
Yeah.
I am.
Move on to the next one. I think we've covered Liverpool already. Let's talk Big Dom Solanke. His numbers have shot up through the roof. This is last 4 matches, 15 shots inside the box, 3.79 XG. Now, initially my thought was possibly, Billing is an alternative, but Billings had 2 shots in the box during that time, and they did a great segment on Monday Night Football on what's changed at Bournemouth post IB. They're pressing a lot higher, I remember for turnovers in the final third, they were something like 20th. Now they're 7th. So there has been a huge tactical shift there. And I think possibly our thinking of Bournemouth needs to change. I'll share some team stats as well. Over the last 4 matches in terms of XG, they're ahead of Man City. Would you believe that if I told you that at the start of the season?
That's crazy.
Wow.
They are
Yeah,
the
we mentioned on the pod, like they've been posting 1.5 plus XG consistently every
Yep.
game. Like
Yep.
every game they do that.
So I think Solanke is someone I haven't owned all season. Somebody I want to. And the thing with Solanke, right, we talk about other picks. Nobody's really a talisman. I can't identify a talisman from Palace, Liverpool. We already be owning more. With Bournemouth, if they score, you'd be surprised if Solanke isn't involved. That's what I'm at that. And West
Yeah.
Ham play. They have a big European game on Thursday. Then they'll be traveling to Bournemouth on Sunday. Bournemouth's tails are up, obviously, after that last result. They've strengthened well in January. Solanke is nailed on in my team. Where are you guys on that?
But
John?
yeah, are you Dom also, LR? Is
No.
he one of your automatic? Yeah, see, I'm
It's
a
the
Dom
Moyes
ultra.
West Ham thing in my head. I don't think it's a great matchup for them. Like I think
Yeah, the
Bournemouth
is-
generally like to
yeah.
play against teams that play, and West Ham isn't one of those. So I wouldn't talk anybody off Solanke because there's enough proof in the pudding there to not doubt this pick. It's as secure and it's chalk for good reason to go Solanke, but I don't think I'm going to go there.
What about West Ham's attack? Do you think there's something over there? Ben Rama, Bowen?
Yeah, I actually do like Bowen as a shout that I haven't seen much, I guess. I mean, West Ham don't really attack much. I mean, it's hard to look at West Ham and be like, oh, I definitely want an attacker from there. But I mean, Bowen's just had a really bad finishing year. I mean, his numbers are still good. His underlying numbers are still good. I think he's playing better lately. I mean, he's carrying the ball into the box more lately. He just looks better, more fit, sort of almost. And Bournemouth, as good as their attack has been, and they're still insanely bad defensively. I mean, they concede chances for absolute fun. But I think that there is definitely a shout here to be like, I'm gonna bet on that rather than bet on Bournemouth's attack against a West Ham defense. That's actually pretty good. They really don't concede that much. Newcastle game aside.
It's something I'm thinking about now. I mean, I was looking at the quotes and I was finding them when Rico was talking. This is what Bowen said. He said, since after the World Cup, I feel like I've been back to my best. People might say it's not my best because I'm not scoring goals, but my general play, assists, it's all been there. It's the best football I'm playing since the World Cup. And it's pretty much what Moyes said as well. So there is a shift in terms of how both player and manager are feeling about that pick. Yeah, it's a shout.
I agree.
The defensive
with
numbers aren't great, right?
Bournemouth? Let's just
Uh,
have a quick
Bournemouth or
look.
West Ham's?
Let me have a quick look at over the last 4 matches. XGC. Bournemouth are somewhere like mid-table. They're about the same as West Ham, both about 6.5. So over the last 4, that's 1.5 average.
And that's, I mean, the West Ham had that like absolute capitulation against Newcastle and just got completely done. But most of the season, they've been the relatively decent defensive team. They're still a Moyes team. They still, like not having the ball. The Arsenal and Newcastle games are recent examples, but against Villa they were tight. Against Southampton they conceded nothing. Against Fulham they conceded nothing. As much as I love Dom, I'm just not sure that this is the week that I'd go from with the other punts. I think have just higher ceilings to me.
Fair enough. I'm just a
What was the
sucker for those
I'm
short
thinking
numbers.
about Jared.
Just the short numbers are
Yeah, me
so
too.
insane.
It's just who we're comparing him to. Like just off the top of my head, the guys that we've talked about already, right? Like I think Palace have a lot higher ceiling. I like Eze more. I think
Yeah.
West Ham have a higher ceiling. I like Bowen more. Like I just think that those teams are more likely to score more goals. So
I maybe
yeah.
agree with the Palace shout, but like Dom's secure. I think as secure as they go. I'm with you in terms of how I'm not fully feeling the matchup.
Yeah.
But maybe that's bias, yeah. Because I've been cheering for Bournemouth ever since trying to pick a team in the relegation race. I know you feel the same way about that, and that they've gone about their business in the right way.
Yeah.
They play good football. They're good on the eye. So I wouldn't talk you against it. Like, and I don't fully buy the notion that they're on paper slightly inferior picks. Like, I think if you're into Dom, good pick. Nothing against. Like, I was looking at Tavernier earlier as well because he's a player I've always wanted to own, and I don't think because of the players that we have in FPL, we get the opportunity or option to pick somebody like him.
Yeah.
So outside shot because I just really, really rate the player as well. So yeah, wouldn't talk you off, Tom. Is where I am.
Just riding a bit of wave, right? The fact that they got the late winner against Spurs, now they're back at home.
Yeah.
Just a bit of riding the wave over there.
I'm just worried when it's always worrying to me when teams like this, and a lot of times you see it when teams get promoted. It's very common that all of their best games this season are without the ball, playing on the break, right? They just want no possession. Just give me a 2v2 with Dom and Billing, or Dom and Tavernier, something like that, and that's when they look good and play well, or what's his name, Otara. But West Ham are just going to be like, here's the ball.
Yeah.
Break us down, and I just don't know if Bournemouth know how to do that or know how to, have a defensive structure in place. And that's why I'm kind of like, man, I don't know. I think West Ham are very, very happy for a 0-0. Maybe both teams are happy for a 0-0, and we should be looking for a clean sheet here, right? But yeah, I don't know.
I really hope the Thursday game goes to extra time or something.
Oh yeah, that'd be good for you.
That would make things fun.
I also mentioned
I'm thinking about
earlier,
Bowen now.
Oh yeah, Bowen. But Bournemouth are the worst team in the league in terms of set piece XG conceded, and they've conceded 18 goals from set pieces also. So if you want to throw your center back dart, maybe it's a Zuma or something like that. I mean, they're gonna get, and Bowen's taking at least half the corners. I mean, there's something there. There's something there for West Ham.
I already got a Zuma goal against Bournemouth. I remember that a few months ago, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
There you go. There you go.
I might be getting talked into the Bowen pick. I like it. I genuinely like it. I see merit there.
Oh.
Move on.
And he's got pedigree. Like, he's a goal scorer, right? So
that's the thing. That's the thing. Yeah, it's not like we're talking about some guy with, we're not talking about Jordan Ayew here. We're talking, we're talking in every team in all of FPL last season, Jared Bowen.
All right. Last game now, Zoph?
Last game, Newcastle West Ham. An interesting one, really, because Newcastle's numbers off late have tailed off, right, and defensively, but no forward has scored more than 6 points at St. James Park this season. Only two teams have scored more than one goal. That's Liverpool scoring 2 and Man City scoring 3. And I think they'll be right up for it, right? I think they get up for the big games at St. James Park after losing 3-0. And Spurs, what's interesting now is the injury to Longley means that I think they might even be forced to shift to a 4 and field more attackers, sort of throw everything at the wall, see what sticks. Do you think this matchup is an unpredictable one? Do you see it being a straightforward Newcastle win? Where are you guys on that? Alon, you first.
I think Newcastle are very clearly the better team, and at home, double that. So I think that Newcastle should win. They should be big favorites. They will be big favorites going into it. From a fantasy perspective, I think both teams are very conservative, which is kind of why I said earlier, Kane is such a good example of someone I would be nowhere near my free hit team, where I think that a lot of people just see Kane and just default put him in. But, I didn't know that stat that you said earlier, that no one scored more than 6 points. I mean, that's a great stat because that's what I see as his ceiling, sort of, aside from a lucky pen. I mean, you're looking at a 5-6 pointer for Kane max, and I just don't, I don't care about that. I don't want that in my team. I think this is just a tight game, and I see all the reasons that people are on trips, mainly because there's not a lot of great defensive picks. So at least you're getting a good attacker on set pieces, great on bones. All makes a lot of sense.
With a decent shout for a clean.
Not a terrible shout. Not a terrible shout. Son was brought up by Nate on FML FPL, and I hadn't really thought of him, but he is looking a lot better lately. I mean, it's a massive punt in a terrible fixture. I don't think I would go there, but I think that there's some merit to that. But yeah, I think Newcastle should just handle them.
Kane was actually playing
I
center
agree.
midfield towards the end of last game with all the attackers they threw.
Yeah.
on.
Oh my god. I know he's
Yeah.
jogging like so far from goal. Yeah.
What about you, LR?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel the same way. Like I would have Newcastle as favorites for this game, and Alon mentioned that they're generally very conservative teams. I don't think either team can let the other team have 3 points in this game. Like I think that's a very big factor because I think both of them are directly competing for that fourth spot, and I think it matters that much for the trajectory of either club. So like there is a lot at stake in this game outside of it being a tricky game to call, and that's why I'm happy because I think of the two teams, if I was to predict one to be slightly loose, it would be Newcastle. But I think Eddie Howe will be wary that he can't afford to let Spurs have 3 points in this game, so they will be even more conservative than usual, which is why I'm comfortable with the Trippier pick, and I haven't considered Kane so far at all. And another thing if somebody wants to punt on a Newcastle attacker, I'm not fully against it, especially if Longley is injured. Because again, I do think that without three of their first choice centre backs fit, there's a huge downgrade when Davies has to play. And not Davies, what's his name? Sanchez has to play.
He
And
had a bad game.
yeah, two mistakes, and it isn't normal. He generally has mistakes in him, and Newcastle are the kind of team that can take advantage because they're known for their pressing from the front, etc. as well. So I don't mind a punt in attack there either.
Isak is worth a shout as well, like you mentioned. And I don't even mind Joelinton if you're going to go for a spot in midfield. Maybe a punt too far, but I
Yeah.
don't mind him for just this one fixture. In defense, I think we were talking about centre backs who could spike a haul. Nobody's more attacking than Sher. Even in open play,
Yeah.
the guy gets forward a lot, those Vertonghen style runs in open play.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's a bad shout either. And ultimately, you're talking about pedigree, right? In defense, Newcastle at home are up there with Man City. They're obviously much superior defense to Palace. Why are we not backing them? Because and Trippier effectively won't matter, right? You're not going to get any
Yeah.
returns from a Newcastle clean sheet with Trippier. So, you really want to capitalize on that. I don't mind Share also for that third defender slot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Like just hearing you guys and thinking about it, I actually like Newcastle's attack. I think I'm upgrading it as we're talking more and
Yeah.
more and more because really, like, I forgot sort of about the top four race between these two teams, but Spurs can't afford a draw if they have any hopes of top four. A draw is really, really bad for them. Basically ends their chances because Newcastle are so far in front in terms of their likelihood of finishing top four that a draw just solidifies that even more. I think Spurs have to go for the win. And I think that Newcastle are so good on the break, especially at home. They just put teams to the sword, right? And they're also just so good at pressing up high. And we've seen with under Stellini, it hasn't changed anything. I mean, Spurs are still just like trying hopelessly to play out from the back, and then it ends up back to Lloris, and then it's a long ball to the midfield, and they lose the ball. And Newcastle just usually manhandle teams like that. They're so good at winning in high, creating a huge chance. They're so good at breaking. You guys are talking me into like a heavy Newcastle win, actually.
Yeah. But if you're punting in attack, problem is we aren't confident about Isak or Wilson. That's the
I'm
real
pretty
issue,
sure
right? Like,
Isak
we-
will start this one. I think
think
I
so.
think he's firmly first choice.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think
haven't
so.
looked-
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who to get. I mean, there's no like Miggy, right? Who's just like so.
He's
you know,
back now.
Getting
He
on the end.
came
Of,
off the bench
He's
last
back now.
game.
He's fit.
So I think
Yeah.
he might
could
start this
start.
one. He's still the top
Gordon
scorer.
didn't do anything in the game. I think Mickey definitely starts this game.
if you think Miggy definitely starts this game, I like Miggy as a punt. I really do. I mean, they have no wide defenders. I mean, it's going to be Perisic and Porro. Neither of them. They're both just wingers.
Yeah, whoever's Poro's
Um,
side, definitely because Poro cannot defend at all.
Yeah, Perisic can't either. I mean, they're not there to defend. And I think that again, like Spurs will get caught playing out from the back this game. I feel very confident in saying that at least once. Just some bad center back to center back flat ball that Newcastle jump on. That's what they do to everyone. So yeah, I'm starting to talk myself into a Newcastle attack.
Yeah, that's why when you're talking about Trippier, like I think
Right.
it's not an EO pick. I think it's just a really good pick this week.
Yeah.
Like I feel comfortable with him.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think this is news to me because you guys really brought it to the forefront of my head. But again, of all of these teams that we've been talking about, all these punting, all these attackers to be punting on, I mean, Newcastle's more likely than any of them to put up a crooked number. Like, no, there's not even a comparison, right? Between them and like Bournemouth or them and West Ham or whatever. Like Newcastle could score 4, and that.
Yeah.
So
You go back to the
like
game
those
against Man
attackers.
United. They had so many chances. I think they put 2+ XG
So
against
many.
Man United, who are
Yeah.
a very good defense. They had most of the defenders fit
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah. And at home especially, right? At home they're a legit attack, Newcastle.
Good shout. I think we need to look at that a bit more. That's
Yeah,
about it
yeah.
from the team matchups. I think we've covered everyone.
Yeah, just in case you guys want to check out these matchups, Fantasypedia does these things every week. You can catch them on Twitter at Fantasypedia. The links are in the description below as well.
Like and
I'm
subscribe.
just looking at
Captaincy.
that Spurs image. Look at that Spurs image. It's just right down
Right
the
down the
middle.
middle.
All our chances. Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you want to do a
Yeah.
like and
And
subscribe
for a
plug,
team
Ella?
that plays 3 at the back,
Yeah,
Yeah,
right?
if you
Stellini ball,
guys-
baby.
I'm not a fan. If you guys have loved the content today, make sure you're clicking on like and subscribe. We've got a Discord. If you want to support us, join us on Patreon. Alon's on there as well. Support us on Patreon or become a member on YouTube to join us on Discord. And Alon, like if you guys haven't tried listening to FML FPL, I highly, highly, highly recommend listening to their podcast. It's the podcast I don't miss without fail, like every week. So
Appreciate it.
where can our listeners find you, Alon?
Yeah, I mean, FML FPL, search that anywhere, any podcast app, YouTube, whatever you like. I mean, I think I'm most active on Twitter. I'm always tweeting like a madman during matches. Yeah, you'll find us. FML FPL, easy.
Nice. So captaincy,
Salah.
where you are with Zophar. Yeah, like is that even a discussion for somebody like you? He's shown more than enough. Like there's no doubt you're
Practically
going
naked
anywhere
now.
else. But Alon, should people bet against Mo this week?
Nah,
Yeah.
I
What
wouldn't.
if you're not on a
just-
free hit? Who do you cap? Do you bring in Mo and captain him, or do you go
Yes.
without him and captain
Yep.
somebody else?
I'd bring him in.
Because you have the
Very
doubles,
confidently bring
him
doubles
in.
coming up. West Ham next. It's a perfect entry point, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
and
and-
people
yeah.
might be thinking that Kane's the person holding up the cash, and they're thinking of selling a person that plays in 32 for somebody who plays in 32. But make that switch because it's far superior option going into the season run, and especially for captaincy this. So I'd even sell Kane if I had to get more.
Oh, for sure.
For
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Yeah.
Without hesitation. Because
Yeah, I mean, and it's always been Liverpool at home, right? That's what everything we've wanted is this fixture, and then the upcoming fixtures are also, 3 out of the next 4 after this game week are at home. So it's time. It's time.
If at all, let's say for the chasers, and I think it's a bad idea even for chasers to bet against Mo this week. I think more opportunities will come in the future. But where else would you go? Would you go Trent? Would you go Arsenal attacker?
Arsenal probably, right?
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Martinelli.
Like I was thinking
my
about this
shout of the
week.
3. Maybe Jesus. If you want to go differential, if you're really chasing, might as well go Jesus.
Or Saka. Like, why not?
Because Saka's EO is still going to be
definitely
quite high, right? Jesus. Because Saka is still owned by a large part of the non-free hitting template. Obviously,
Yeah,
not
fair.
if you're going against Mo, you're going against the grain. So might as well go Jesus and go full hog.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
make sure if you're going
Trent
against
is all of these guys are punts, right? We're all saying that Mo is definitely the best pick, but I mean Trent is right up there, right? I mean, there was the Bournemouth 9-0 earlier in the season where Mo blanked and Trent got a 17-pointer, right? I mean, he can very easily get like 2 attack returns clean, max bones, and that that's possible.
There was while we have you here, Liverpool fan. There's a little bit of a debate in the community. Like, take away what Trent did with 2 assists, whether this position that he's playing is actually better or worse for him from an FPL point of view. What do you see?
I think better. I mean, anytime you get someone of his qualities on the ball a lot more often, I think it's always going to be better. And it's not like, I mean, I think that I said it on our pod. I mean, the Leeds game is a perfect example of why I think it's better, because he still has the freedom to get forward, right? The first goal, even though it shouldn't have counted. And that's just normal Trent positioning, right? Attacking right back, a pullback from the byline, a tap in, or not really a pullback, a cross, tap in for Gakpo, right? But then you see in the Darwin goal, he's on the ball a lot more. There's space ahead of him. He just gallops into almost a 10 position and plays Darwin in over top. I think he's just so absurdly talented. I mean, I think that like it goes, I don't know, people kind of probably roll their eyes, right? Because he's been such an automatic FPL pick since, I don't know, when was it? 18, 19 or 17, 18 or something? Since he's been starting regularly. But he still almost doesn't get enough enough like praise for just how ridiculously good of a passer he is. And the more he's on the ball, I mean, I just think he's just going to keep creating more, keep getting bonus, keep getting assists, probably end up taking more shots too, even though we haven't seen that yet. So I think it's all good for him.
All right. Cool. So, if you want to show us a draft before
Yes,
we
I'll
end, I
just-
don't think we'll be doing.
Yep.
Yeah. 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 I mean, after this conversation, I've been thinking about Bowen a lot more. I've been thinking about Leicester if he talks about Iheanacho a lot more. So let's see where we land. I
Yeah,
have no idea what my team.
I keep coming back to it, but it's all balanced, right? It's like, do you prefer like Jesus and Mitchell, or Ben White and Bowen?
Correct.
Something
Yeah.
like that, right? And
Yeah.
I think for me, it's the latter, because I feel so confident in the Arsenal clean. I'm just like, that's a 6-pointer, maybe more. Which is like probably what you'd expect from Jesus, right? I mean, I'm not really expecting like a triple return.
Soft.
And then
You're on
Bowen
mute,
has
by
the
the way.
ceiling,
Sorry, Ada, what did you say?
You're on mute. Soft on mute. Soft. But people missed
Oh,
everything
that
when
was
you read
just-
out your team. That was great.
Oh man.
Oh, really? I could hear it.
Yeah, so Zoph's got oh my god, I can barely see the team. Wait, I have it in a folder here. Quickly gonna get that. It's great FPL content.
I have
So
it up
he's
if
got
you want me to.
Johnston,
Okay.
Trippier, Trent, Mitchell, Saka, Martinelli, Salah, Hakpo, Dom, Watkins, and Jesus. And he thinks he's gonna maybe change 2 or 3 spots. He's thinking about Newcastle a lot more, etc. That's where he is. And yeah, I hope you guys heard that. And you're on mute again, so Zoph, we're not going to let you talk anymore.
Yeah,
I think
that
it's a
particular
good
slide
note for
had
us.
the audio input issue.
All right, cool. I think we can miss the Q&A today because we've shot
We've got 90
about
minutes
90.
plus.
It's been a while since we've gone 90 minutes plus. That just happened when Alon comes on. Thank you so much, Alon, for making an exception and podding at the earliest you've done in a long period of
No,
time.
my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. It was fun chat. I got
Yeah.
a lot of things to think about with my my one free transfer, who to target.
Yeah, like that's what the pod has done. Actually, I'm thinking about things a lot more after this conversation than I did before, and I think
Yeah.
that's just,
I mean,
what I've
who's the one attacker you think you'd bring in? I just have one free. I have 10 guys. I have 5 defenders playing, so it's just one attacker. I could get anyone because I have Holland. So, and I'm wildcarding next week. I could get anyone.
and you've got 3
Who's just-
Liverpool, 3 Arsenal.
I have I actually only have 2 Arsenal, so it's probably an Arsenal mid or forward, right? It's
Probably an
probably
Arsenal guy.
Jesus or Saka.
Probably an Arsenal guy.
I'd go Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over Saka?
I think so. Because you want to take a punt because Saka is against 70, 80 EO. Jesus is still not going to be very high amongst non-free hitter crowd. Expect him to be 50, 60. There's more to gain over there.
Right.
And he scored and looked like scoring every game.
Underlying numbers
But
are way better.
It is more to gain. I like EO is actually important for me, not on free hit, right? Like I really don't want to just get crushed by a Saka 10-pointer. So I think that actually because I'm not on free hit, my whole team is sort of a differential. You know, I sort of want to actually follow the EO, I think maybe with this one pick, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I don't think you can afford to go into 33 on tilt. Like the most dangerous thing on
A
Wildcard.
2-day wild card until.
Yeah. I think that's an important as well. Psychological point of view.
Yeah. All right. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. That's it. The guys at FML FPL are doing a Patreon pod on Thursday. Is Walsh back? Yeah.
Yep.
So
Walsh
you
will be
guys will
back.
get-
Walsh will be back.
And we're not fully confident about a pod before 33. I'm traveling. Soft might or might not do something before 33, but we'll definitely see you guys before 34, which is
It's been a pleasure having you, Alon. We must get you on here more often.
Cheers. Anytime.
yes. Take care, boys, and last words, boys.
Okay,
No.
let's go.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Good night.
Take care, guys.